Wanted to welcome everybody to today's program. We'll start here in a few minutes, but just to kind of give you a few brief introductions and some information about today's program, as well as the California Preservation Foundation. For those of us or those of you who are new to us, the California Preservation Foundation is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit dedicated to protecting and celebrating the depth and diversity of California's historic places. Our programs are made possible through the generous support of our members, donors, and annual sponsors, including our lead education sponsor, WJE. If you'd like to be a part of this statewide preservation community, I wanted to invite everybody to join us at californiapreservation.org/join. I also wanted to acknowledge the generosity of everyone who offers programs, who provides donations to us so that we can offer programs like this at no cost. And also want to call attention to those of you who chose to donate as part of this special end of year series. We often do a series like this at the end of the year, and many of you have chosen to donate as part of your registration. So I wanted to acknowledge that and thank you. If you'd like to still give a gift, you can make a special end of year gift by going to californiapreservation.org/give. While you're supporting CPF, I also wanted to invite you to visit our annual preservation auction. That auction can be found at californiapreservation.org/bid. This year's auction features unique experiences and rare items, many of which relate to some of the programs in this series. And today's program is part 3 in our series entitled Where Worlds Meet, exploring how global ideas, cultures, and architectural traditions have shaped the built environment in California. Today's program is entitled Part 3, Armenian Architecture and Heritage in California. And we're blessed to be joined today by two wonderful speakers, both architects in California. First, we have Paul Halajian. He's an architect based in Fresno and principal of Paul Halajian Architects. He led the design of the Armenian Genocide Monument at Fresno State University and has contributed to numerous regional public projects. Paul also serves on the board of our organization, the California Preservation Foundation. Second, we have Aram Alajajian. He's a principal of Alajajian Marcuse Architects in Glendale, a firm known for civic, educational, and cultural projects across Southern California. He's an architect for the Armenian American Museum and Cultural Center of California and many other civic and educational and religious buildings in Glendale and around the region. With those introduction, I want to turn it over to Paul Halajian to first talk about the Armenian Genocide Monument in Fresno. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, John. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm just thrilled to talk about this really important project, not only in my life personally as an architect, but to the Armenian people, to the Armenian community in Fresno, and to architecture in California. Sorry, I'm having a hard time advancing here. The slides aren't advancing.
Paul, would you like me to pull up the slides on my end?
Would you mind? For some reason, I'm having technical difficulties here.
Sure. 1 second here.
Okay, can you advance the next slide? Okay, so just a brief background on the Armenian Genocide for those who may not be familiar with this event in world history. There have been a number of genocides of the Armenian people throughout its existence. Armenia was a people group that lived in the what is now Turkey under the Ottoman Empire. During the fog of World War I, there was a plan by the Young Turk regime to systematically exterminate the largely Christian Armenians within their lands, within the provinces of the Armenian, within the provinces of the Ottoman Empire. It is largely considered the first genocide of the modern era, and it gave impetus to the Nazi final solution, the plan to exterminate the Jews. And this quote from 1939 by Adolf Hitler, who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians. So Hitler knew about this. The Turks thought they could get away with it, but that's not the case. The Armenian people are alive and well today. So what you see here is the Armenian Genocide Monument in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. It's known as Zizur Nagaperd, which loosely translates Swallow's Fortress. It's on a plateau along the Krastan River, one of three hills outside of Armenia, or outside of Yerevan. And it was obviously a great source of inspiration as we set out to design a monument in Fresno. Next. So this is the Armenian Genocide Monument at Fresno State. This came about by a group of folks from the Armenian community, clergy, academics, and just interested people. I was approached by this committee to come to a meeting 2 weeks from the day I got the call with some ideas about what could be a monument to mark the Armenian genocide. So it was a very robust collaboration with myself and this committee and a member of my staff, a very talented architect, Shantya Menjin. We spent quite a bit of time just doing research and analyzing how we could actually build something that was meaningful and a kind of focal point for the Armenian community here in Fresno. So this is the site on the campus of California State University, Fresno. Next. So this is on the left is an overall campus map, and the blow up is the site. You can see in the center of this long LA. So that north-south, that vertical axis you see, that is called the Maple Mall. And it is in itself a monument. It's a monument to people who died in submarine disasters during all of the American wars fought. So that site is at the crossroads of the Rose Walk and the Maple Mall, two very important axes. So we talked to the Submariner group to find out if they would be okay with another monument within the Submariner monument. And off to the left is another monument to Fresno State students who died in wars. So this is a very kind of symbolic part of the campus, and it seemed appropriate to locate this monument to the genocide, the Armenian genocide, there as well. One of the wonderful things about this is the university was willing to embrace a very touchy subject and create a place for dialogue and education. And so we're very thankful that Fresno State put up the site for this. Next. So this is just some diagrams to talk about a little bit about how the idea came about. So what you're seeing here is a diagram one. That's a diagram of the monument in Yerevan. Obviously, we use that as the inspiration. We didn't want to just rip it off completely. We wanted to use it as a point of departure. So we created a figure ground, a study, and then what we realized was the monument in Yerevan is insular. It's a series of these large inclined slabs, and there are these slots of open space that allow access to the center. We decided to flip that, as you can see on the far right side. We inverted it, and we took the figure ground and flipped it so that the wide spaces were not the solids but the voids, to create a visual transparency and a connection between what happens inside and what happens outside. Next. This is a plan view of where we arrived, and so there are 9 pylons arranged in a circle, and these 2 entry pylons announce entrance to the monument. At the center is a symbol of the eternal flame. You'll see a little bit more on that in a moment. Each of these 9 pylons represents some unique aspect of Armenian culture. the first one to the left as you enter, this is the tallest. This one is 19 feet tall, and it represents the nation of Armenia. And the one on the right side as you enter represents the diaspora. And the subsequent 7 pylons, they each represent one of the vilayets, or the regions within the Ottoman Empire where Armenians lived during the genocide in 1915. So this is kind of a snapshot of the geography of the region in 1915. Next. So this image is at the groundbreaking ceremony. At the podium is the Council General of the Republic of Armenia here in Fresno. There's clergy members and members of the committee. One of the unique things that took place on that day was soil from Armenia was brought and poured around the site, just to forever connect Fresno and Armenia. And so this was a really important day in the life of our community. Next. So again, here's the entry. You can see everything that you see in English is also in Armenian script on the opposite side. So the tall column in the foreground, that's the 19-foot tall column, and then the 15-foot tall column. What that geometry did is each of the subsequent columns is 6 inches shorter than the one next to it. And what that did is it created this halo that ties everything together. And right at the entry, you see this fracture. The halo it's a circle that has been fractured, and that it's an expression of the fracture that took place in the life of Armenian history, Armenian culture, the countless families that were destroyed by this. It's expressed to that notion of fracture, and just the simple geometry, the resultant form was a very powerful symbol. Next. So here are some detailed shots. On the right side, you can see on top of on each of the pylons, there's in English, and on the opposite side in Armenian, what that pylon represents. There is a map. In this case, this is a map of the world, and you can see faintly those dots represent where there are large concentrations of the Armenian diaspora. On the subsequent columns, there is a stylized map of the vilayets where the genocide took place. Between each of the pylons is these almost like side chapels, if you will, where there's information etched on stainless steel plaques that represent the milestone events in Armenian history. Overhead, you see the fractured halo, and then on the left, you can see on the narrow face of each of the pylons, there's a cast channel, and water spills out of that down the face of that channel, and from the point where the water spills going up is a perforated stainless band of light. You'll see in a moment the ethereal light quality you get at night. But we realize that so much the Armenian people are so connected with Christianity. Armenia was the first nation to accept Christianity in the year 301 AD. And we relied on these two very strong notions of water and light. And in John chapter 14, there's a description of Christ being living water springing up to eternal life. And then in John chapter 1, this notion that Christ is the light that cannot be overcome by the darkness. So light and water were extremely important to the metaphor and the meaning of the monument. Next. So here you get a sense of what it looks like at night. On the ground, and right in the center, is a symbol of the eternal flame. That's a symbol you see a lot in Armenian church architecture. In the monument in Yerevan, there's an actual flame. The university wouldn't let us put eternal flame, so the next best thing was this cast metal bronze plaque, and underneath that is the soil that came from Armenia. Next. Yes, there you can see the bronze plaque, the Eternal Flame script in Armenian, and then on the left you can see this tufa stone. This stone was actually quarried in Armenia and brought to the site. This polychromatic stone is used to adorn churches in Armenia. So we thought, let's bring this material from Armenia and again embed and connect Armenia and Fresno. And then here you can see one of the stainless plaques. This particular plaque is the last plaque as you make your way around the circle. The other plaques talk about Armenia, the milestones in Armenian history. It all culminates at this plaque, which is almost like a recount of all the genocidal acts that have taken place in the 20th century, starting with the Armenian Genocide, and the numbers are staggering. And what's really great about this is it just foments ongoing discussion about this horrific part of the world we live in today. Next. So just an overall shot of of the Armenian Genocide Monument within the Submariners Monument at Fresno State. Next. And that previous image, just real quick, it was the so let's see. All right, so that's the overall shot, and you can see the plaques between each of the pylons. Next. That's an image on the night of the ribbon cutting. It was anticipated that there might be 500 or so people. There was close to 2,000 people in attendance. So every year on April 15th, I'm sorry, April 24th, the monument is lit up in the colors of the Armenian flag, and it's just such a great symbol of Armenian unity and the perseverance of the Armenian people. Next. So thank you. On to Aram.
Thank you, Paul. And we'll give Aram a second to get situated here while I pull up his slides.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I want to start with the first project. I situated like on this slideshow like three of my projects. The first one would be the next slide, which is the Armenian Catholic Church that we designed. Yeah, that's the one. This is in Glendale. It's an Armenian Catholic Church that we designed in 1998. Building was completed in 2001, actually. So this resembles some of the elements of the Armenian architecture. And if you go to the next slide, let me try that from my end. Yeah, this is, I'm just doing a historic reference here. Multi-dome structures, the center dome structures, actually the Armenian churches, as Paul was mentioned, was the very first Christian churches that was built in this earth. Started from 4th century. Christianity came Armenia in 1st century by Thaddeus and Bartholomew. Both saints brought the Christianity to Armenia, but the Christianity was accepted as a national religion by a King Turtat in 301. So first Christian nation in the world has started building their churches. So this is the prototype with the way the churches were built, and starting from 4th century. Then in 7th and up to 14th century, it starts growing, and you can see multiple structures and the multi-dome structures in the same area, same vicinity. So that served as an inspiration for the project. Next one. For some reason, the slide doesn't work. Yeah. Okay. This one of the on the right-hand side is one of the first sketches of the master planning and how the building it worked. The church is on the three naval church, which would be on the left-hand side, two bell towers and a main dome situated on the south side of it. And there's an assembly area, which is on the right-hand side of it, and a main rooms and administrative offices of the church situated continuation of the main dome with the elevator tower on the right. So next, on the next slide, those are the views from the south side mainly, how the detailing of the architectural elements are done. The build is built with a metal framing, and we apply the stones. The entire stone was imported from Syria. The Armenian Catholic community and from Syria donated this stone, and it came from the mines. It's called Malula. Malula is the city where they still teach Aramaic. It's a small town up on the hills. I went out there. I checked the stone with Father Raphael, who was the initiator of this church. Now the Patriarch of the Catholics of Armenia. He resides in Lebanon at this moment, but he decided that the stone, which was donated by a Syrian Armenian Catholic community, and some of the other items were donated by the Catholic community around the world, which I'll show you later. The next one, please. Yeah, we carry a lot of Armenian elements within the architectural elements within the design. On the right-hand side, you see the courtyard, the main entry, which is, we call it St. Gregory, the illuminator who brought the Christianity, made it accepted by a king, the Christianity to Armenia. And on the right-hand side, 1700 number shows it's 1700 years of Christendom in 2000 of year of 2001, that this wall is like a monument for Christianity in Armenia. On the left-hand side, the carving and the wood door, and I normally go back and do a deep historic search, and I included some words from the Armenian poet Grigor Naregatsi. It says, in Armenian words, it says undividably far and unreachably far and undividably close. This is words to the God that it's in the Armenian prayer. So next, on the next slide, you see the interior of the church, multi-column, running from both sides of the naves. The center nave and the altar is a 12,000 tons of marble imported Italy, carved in south of Lebanon, which I went there also to do those all hand carving stuff, and we brought it here, imported here, and we'll sit in that altar. And again, the inspiration of the column, this one column is taken from the historic 13th century monastery of Armenia. And if you can see the second column from the right side is different than any column. I'll tell you a little bit about it later. Why is that different? It has well, I can tell you now. It has some symbolic meaning that whenever the Armenian churches were built, symbolically the builder would donate or dedicate one column to the priest or a clergy that build this church. So that one column, which made a difference, and it's different in a look, it is dedicated to Father Raphael Minassian. Next one, please. And same elements, the ornamental elements carry on here. You see the entry door from the narthex to the main nave. And again, the rosette, the hand-carved rosette on the top that you're seeing, there's a little dot on a right-hand side, which is a little bit darker. So that also this has the callings of the poet who was a priest at that time. Also, Grigor Naregatsi, the Saint Grigor Naregatsi, is being consecrated as a saint in the Vatican lately, about a year or 2 years ago. So he says that you rise as a sun and illuminate the universe. So that rosette is our universe, and that little dot is our earth. It's symbolically carved in this overhead stone. And the right-hand side, the Catholic community has received this Jesus's wooden cross, and they wanted to place this in a church, but the wood wouldn't be very adequate with a design interior. So I kind of changed that, more of a symbolically Christ's figure hanging from the center of this cross, which forms the arch, the Armenian arch on the top, and a cross on the top brings the light in. It's a void of the cross itself, so the light illuminates through that area, and all the sides of this cross. Next, please. So this is the looking from the north. You can see the look of the church. And next one, please. This is the next project I wanted to show you. So I tried to elevate. This is the Western Prelacy of the Armenian Apostolic Church. So the Western Prelacy is formed in Western Armenia, which is in Cilicia. After the genocide, their headquarters or their Holy See moved down to Lebanon because of the genocide. They lost their location in Cilicia, which was a city called Romkla. So, and Assis. From the Assis city, they moved down to Lebanon and Beirut. Now, the next slide, I wanted to do some historic reference to this, where I traveled through the Western Armenia and I saw most of our churches and the structures being destroyed. But it came to my mind, even with its destruction, that it's only one dome is standing or some walls or half arches standing. We can still create an interesting architecture. If you look at the next slide, please. Yeah. And this assembles that. I have a half arch as an entry, and I have a dome coming out of the ground, which the program called out a little chapel in there for baptizing and a small special events. And basically, these are administrative offices for the Western Prelacy. This is looking from the east. It's completely with a stone. Next slide, please. It's done with a travertine stone imported from Armenia, and also the tufo stone, which you see it on a middle picture here. It's carved in Armenia, imported here. So it's a combination of different elements in the cross stones and a forms that come together and forms this sort of a contemporary look of the Armenian architecture. And the right-hand side is the interior look of that little chapel in there. Next one, please. And I used a lot of symbolic elements, vertical walls, which are still part of the recalling the inspired from the ancient Armenian architecture, in the half arches and the carved crosses that is sitting and supporting some of those canopies, and the metal and glass rising out of it. So the contemporary materials and elements are rising out of the ancient stone walls. Next one, please. Yeah, and you see entrance from the north side and some detailing here, the window details and the metal panels coming together with the stone elements. Next one. Next project I wanted to share with you is the Armenian American Museum. So in 2014, the Southern California Armenian communities got together with the religious section, and they decided that we need a major project here to commemorate the 100-year commemoration anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. So the committee formed, and they announced a competition of the museum. 46 architectural firms, asked for the entries. 26 submitted their proposals, and we were the winners of the project. So what the program called out, they wanted the monumental building which reflects Armenia itself. How close you can get to an Armenian architecture. So what we have selected here is where the landscape of the Armenia is. We are in a mountainous country, and you can see the stalactites formation in most of the mountains in Armenia that is pictured on the right-hand corner. So I'm picking from that, we created a facade which is kind of reflects the image of the mountainous Armenia, and it continues all around that form of the museum. On the next slide, but the facade wasn't the only thought behind this or a symbolism behind this project. So if you look at the plan in the 7th centuries up to 14th century, Armenians start adding, churches. When the Christianity starts growing, churches were very small, and a narthex got larger because it would accommodate people before they enter to the closer to the altar, being in a church. And the narthex are specially planned to be an area where not only baptized people could be there, or Christian religion people could wait there for they're coming for the weddings or any other occasion. They could wait in the narthex and be protected from the sun and rain. So taking that little uh, square element, which is to the left of that drawings in the bottom, our floor plan is basically building a narthex where the people come together and they congregate together. It is a place of the meeting for everyone. So that inspired the floor plan. And on the left hand side, you see the reflection on the facade. So this stainless steel facade is cut into the angles towards the basalt elements down there. And the bottom is the picture of Mount Ararat where Noah's Ark landed when historically. So when you look at it, this image tells you that you see the Mount Ararat from the east, and you see at night you see with the lighting you see the Noah's Ark landed in the Ararat. So it's sort of a symbolism carrying through. Then on the next slide, please. Uh, Also, the interior has some Armenian architectural elements that carry through. On the black and white pictures, you see the skylight, which was right above that narthex. We call it Gabit. And instead of doing it vertically, on the left-hand side, you see the skylight in the center, which is uh, horizontally interpreted in a graphical style. And in the middle of this lobby, where the reception lobby, which is the center of the museum, uh, we have our first um, we have our alphabet wall, which is the first cultural creation, and 341 Mesrop Mashtots has created the Armenian alphabet. So it is that old of a language which was spoken about 5,000 years now. In a 341, Armenians had their own alphabet, and that alphabet will be placed in this wall, hand carved, technically using the ornaments of the Armenian architecture. So the next slide, please. This is again from the lobby, picture from the lobby. Next one, please. I placed a few photos that to show you the progress of the museum. This is you're looking at the interior where that skylight is going. It's under construction. Next one, please. Yeah, that's the skylight and alphabet wall. And next one. This is looking from the north side where the Glendale Central Park area is. You're seeing the downtown towers of Los Angeles back there. Next one, please. This is where we at right now. We're cladding. So between you can see the concealed building and a gray in the back, and the scheme that creates the slanted angles, and they move all around it. So the way it's designed, so they tie in together all those slanted angles, then they create this mountainous effect, which called Armenian dance. There's a mountainous continuous chain of mountains which called Armenian dance. So this is a replica of that, which is carried at the bottom of this stainless steel element. So between the stainless steel and the shell of the building, there's a walkway, catwalks all around it. So all the utilities are brought between the catwalk and the stainless steel. All the air supply, plumbing, electrical wires, everything is outside. So you don't see anything inside except the direct air supply elements wherever it needs to be. So that was a kind of a technique we used. I think it's not the first time. It was used in Pompidou Center in France. So this is somewhat of a little bit of an advance of that, which is not exposing the ducts. We're covering it with the elements. And next one, please. Yeah, this is looking from the corner, northeast corner. The base is a basalt, and the entire skin is angel hair stainless steel made and prepared by a Kansas company called Zahner. They've done a lot of these projects down in Southern California and around the world. One of the best companies that we work with. Next one. And this is looking from the air. You can see the rooftop where the elements are basically AC elements are screened with a about 6 foot high wall, and there's also a usable area around the skylight. We have an access to the rooftop where would be continuation of the rooftop garden and a sculptural garden up there. Next one, please. This is looking at the rendering on the left side and the actual construction going on the right-hand side. So to show you how close we can get architects when we design something, we try to achieve it. Next one, please. I wanted to talk about this a little bit. This is we're also are going to place a fountain commemorating the Armenian diaspora after the Armenian genocide, as Paul has mentioned, and he was showing in his, that inspired me too. He was showing in his monument. So you see the world map at the bottom of the fountain, which is about 2 inches below the water surface. And the water jets are reflecting the Armenian diasporas around the world. After 1915, Armenians spread all over the world because of the genocide. They left their homes and their belongings, everything. And so it was my family, so they went all over. And those water jets will work 24 hours a day and 12 months and 360 days, except the night of April 23rd, the water color will turn into the red, and the only light you see the location of Armenia on the right-hand picture. The water jets would die, the fountains would die, and it will reflect. The light will come up there, and you will see a map of deportation of Armenians from their country. The day of the 25th, next day after the commemoration of the April 24th Armenian Genocide Day, the fountains will rise back again, so life will come back. And then the fountains will work for another year until the next one. Next one, please. Yeah, and thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a pleasure, speaking with you, and we're open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you both. What I didn't realize until seeing these presentations was that usually CPF presents on historic architecture, and all of the architecture that's been talked about has been constructed in the last couple decades. But what struck me was that they were all deeply informed by history and culture and your own personal sort of history and experiences in life. So thank you both for those wonderful case examples. I wanted to mention to everybody in the room that our Q&A box will be open. I don't see any questions in there right now, but please do feel free to ask any questions of Aram and Paul, and I'll be sure to address those. I'm going to start with my own, just sort of looking at California context, and the description in this program uh, alluded to Armenian architecture and its influences in the California landscape, and both of you have built works of architecture in California. But I'm wondering how you think designing in this state, including such factors as its light, its climate, seismic kind of conditions, and also its cultural diversity, and just not just the Armenian community, but the many cultures that live here. Um, how do you think that has changed how you have designed your architecture here in this state? And maybe I'll start with Paul.
Well, I think what brought Armenians to the Central Valley of California really was the climate, very similar to parts of Armenia. And so I think it was agriculture that drew the first settlers here, and they got a foothold, like so many other immigrant communities. Fresno is really a gateway to people coming from other parts of the world for various reasons. And so for the Armenians came here, they got a toehold in what is possible in America. And I think as a people, we've thrived, and the way in which architecture has been used to convey who we are as a people really, I think, is most commonly found in our churches. And I think looking at Autumn's work, it's a good example that the church, the architecture of the church is really what reminds us of who we are and what our traditions are and where we've been as a people for the last, as he mentioned, the Armenian church has been around for 1700 years and is still thriving. So
Yeah, and Aram,
Yeah,
any
thank you,
thoughts?
John. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Obviously, the buildings here in Southern California needs to meet all the code standards, from ADA to Title 24, you name it. We have plan checkers as strict as anywhere else in the world, you know. Um, However, for me, each project that if it's an Armenian nature or any nature, and anytime I approach the project, it's to me is to have it should say something, I mean, it should have this reflection, whether it's historic or references to a culture, like in a museum. I call it, normally architects we say form follows function. And I would say not on that project, not only form follows function, it's only follows the fiction. It follows the story. The storytelling for me is also important. So, but the coming back to the codes and the standard. Absolutely, it's done with the current codes, like it's a steel and concrete, the museum. And the churches are stone and steel, and some of the framing, the early ones were wood framing, but it's cladded with a stone with all the technical data that applies to this kind of a projects. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, California presents its own challenges, of course, but also opportunities because it's a state that accepts a lot of kind of diversity in architecture and is able to kind of roll with whatever designs. Prior to this program, I Googled Armenian architecture in California. And the first one that showed up was St. Gregory. And what struck me about it was, you mentioned the stones coming from far away, and you know, it just looks so striking in a California landscape, the differences between the building and its surroundings. But I think in California, we're all willing to accept that kind of striking difference because it kind of reflects something that's interesting and you want to learn more about. And
True.
I wanted to pull up a few. I didn't know whether we'd have time for this or not, but I think we do. So I'm going to share a few more slides that Paul has shared with us here, some Fresno area works. And Paul, feel free to chime in. I have this. I was going to play it on loop, but I thought we could talk a little bit about each of these, just briefly to kind of give some context into the longer history of Armenian architecture in the Fresno area. And first of all, the other building that popped up in my Google image search was the Holy Trinity Church, a church in Fresno, and it's over 100 years old now, right, Paul?
yeah, that's right. I think this was built in 1914. This is actually on the National Register of Historic Places. Um, so this is so there's essentially sort of two branches of the Armenian Church. The Armenian Apostolic Church is sort of the mother church. That's the 1700-year-old church with a liturgy that goes back for centuries. So Holy Trinity is in that tradition. Um, and so this church has been around for a long time. It's thriving, it's active, it's lively. The congregation goes to great measures to care for this place and to maintain it. And it's just it's one of the icons of our downtown. Um, so Pilgrim Armenian Congregational. This is a Protestant church. This was designed by Richard Manoogian in the late 1960s, and this is a church that's sort of steeped in metaphor. The roof form is sort of inspired by the headpiece worn by a priest in the Apostolic Church, even though this is not an apostolic church. It has this very kind of beautifully detailed mid-century modern interior. It's got stained glass, and it's just when you look at this building, I'm just struck by the fact that people were designing buildings like this long before parametric software was around. And it's just a beautiful, really beautiful church that, for example, the cupola on top is another reference to traditional apostolic church architecture. So it's just a really great example of how kind of modern themes and traditional themes came together to create this beautiful, cohesive environment for worship.
Yeah, that was another question that came in, and maybe I'll address this from the Q&A box is what inspires the roof design of the church? And I think this reference was to St. Gregory, which has a very similar motif, Aram.
Mhm.
So was this
Yeah.
something that you could speak to a little bit in terms of St. Gregory?
Yeah, it is actually it's the funnel like a dome is picked up from the traditional Armenian architecture. Where the dome proportions got bigger, they basically separated into smaller fragments to work the drainage easily way out of the roof. So that triggered to basically design similar to what you're seeing in a picture of this like an umbrella type of, roof on top of it. And, some people refer that to the hats of the priests that they carry in an Armenian clergy, but I don't see any similarities. I think those type of design comes from the 12th century Armenian churches, especially in a main city, Ani, which is right now in Western Armenia, border with Turkey. And it at the year 900 it had a population of million two and
Mhm.
used to be called city of 1001 churches. It
Mhm.
was in a Silk Road where the all the transactions, and businesses were happening, and through that, the eastern products were carried all the way to Venice, to Italy, to Europe. So that city has really grown, and their mother church has a similar dome at that time. Yeah.
Here's another one, Paul, that you included here in your slides.
Right. This one is a little newer than Pilgrim, but and more obviously more contemporary, more modern in its character. One of the striking things about this church, I actually grew up in this church and was married here. One of the great things about this church is the stained glass you can see on either side. This is a very insular, inward-looking environment for worship, and on the stained glass is essentially the story of the gospel. So the upper part of the stained glass is kind of the gospel story, and the lower part is the history of the Armenian church. So it's using a traditional stained glass for what it was originally meant to do, which is to educate and to teach, and also to animate space. It's just a beautiful light quality in there. It's clad in wood. It's got these very expressive beams, and again, a cupola on top that emits light from the top.
And mentioning the stained glass, I'm glad you mentioned that, Paul, is there's a question from Laura. As a former St. James Armenian Church, now school on Adams Boulevard in Los Angeles, there are traditional stained glass windows, but they depict the Armenian saints. Is that a common feature of Armenian church architecture?
I can answer that.
Please.
Well, the stained glass is not traditionally part of the Armenian architecture. Question was accurate. It appeared to be at the 17th century, later than that, where the integration of the stained glass elements came into, the Armenian architecture. But traditionally, the very first architectural, the churches, it didn't have any color glass in there, not even have a glass. They just had an opening, those
Hmm.
7th century churches in Garmravor, Spitagavor, all of those areas that my education is back from Armenia, so I had studied most of those churches, when I was at school, and learned a lot about it. And I traveled most of the regions in that time was the Soviet Republic of Armenia. Most of the regions did watercolor and took some slides. Never noticed any color thing, but but the 17th century later, those color glasses being more available to Armenian architects, and the implementation of that you see in Constantinople, which is Istanbul right now. Istanbul, and in diaspora built churches mainly. We see it in Paris. We have a church there where it has a lot of stained glass elements, and it's just beautiful, you know. So that's the answer.
Great. Thank you, Aram.
Thank you.
I think this is the last slide you had. Maybe yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So Paul, can you tell us a little
Uh,
bit about this?
St. Paul, another apostolic church. This was built in the 1970s, and so it's essentially a modern building. It's a steel frame building that's clad in masonry. It's a custom designed concrete block. It has, as you can see, the sort of three arched facade that you see often in Armenian church architecture. The dome is very much in terms of the what's called the squinch, the way the dome is supported. And the altar is very, very authentic. So this one is, again, it's a modern church, but it's done a really good job. This was designed by an architect, James Nargis, who did a number of churches in the area. And so I think he did a really good job to create something that is modern and contemporary, while being true to some of the original underpinnings of Armenian church architecture.
Thank you. That was a nice tour of some of the Central Valley kind of Armenian buildings. There's a few more questions in the Q&A,
Mhm.
and I wanted to go through these maybe in order of request because people are able to upvote which questions they'd like to see addressed first. So I'll start with Sam and Bonnie, and they're asking, will the Armenian Museum be completed and open to the public soon?
Yeah, it's planned to complete end of 2026, which is end of next year. It's planned to have a soft opening there, but the permanent exhibition, you know, which is core exhibition, we call it, and the exhibit spaces will be open 2027 by April. That's the target dates right now. Starting the January, the interior work will start. By end of January, we're hoping that the entire building would be closed off. But not to forget, the same time the city is doing the public park. They're renovating the park, moving a lot of parking spaces out of there, and they're just going to be providing with a green space out there. So that's going to run parallel to our project starting next year.
Great, thank you. And on related to that, do you know or are you able to tell us, Aram, how the Glendale Museum was funded?
Yeah. Uh, it's Glendale Museum is partially funded by state. State gave us about 17 to 18 million dollar, and then LA County has gave us about $1 million, uh, and federal government has sent about $917,000. But the rest is funded by Armenian community
Mhm.
organizations, donors, and naming opportunity people that basically contribute to this museum's construction.
Great. I'm looking forward to visiting myself.
Absolutely,
Um,
my guest. Let us
Uh,
know.
Gina is asking, this is a question I sort of had, is what informed your choices in exterior cladding? And in your case, Paul, the choice, of course, you sort of explained it of the tufa, um, and the interesting choices of stonework, especially the imported stonework. And I think both of you have sort of spoken to that, but maybe you can provide us a little more context. Why you chose the stone you did and why stone is so important in your buildings.
Uh, uh, well, as Paula was describing, the 2-4 stone is the main construction material down in Armenia. Uh, the original churches back in fourth century was built. My research, based on my research, was built on wood,
Mm,
but it didn't last. So it was rebuilt on the pagan side. Sometimes, you know, they had to take down the pagan temples and rebuild the Christian churches, which wasn't the best examples, but they did it. You know, so main material is the stone in Armenia. So to have that kind of a reflection when you're designing a project, especially the Armenian church, I think the stone is an essential material that resonates with people. You know, when they walk in to see the stone flooring and the walls are made of stone or columns and all that carved from the stone, uh, that is. But in the case of the museum, yes, I see the question on my right here by Gina saying on the museum the cladding is more of a modern, but the base is still stone. The basalt, we're hanging like a 2 inch thick basalt, which is mechanically hung from those waterproof walls at the bottom of the at the base area. So basalt is also used in the Armenian architecture because basalt is absorbs the water less than a tufo itself. So all the bases in the you go to the capital city Yerevan or any other city, the bases are done with the basalt. So I use the basalt on the base, but
Mm.
above ground, about 9 feet above ground, to reflect that stalactites or modernity, the best material instead of using a concrete form concrete and all that, I thought stainless steel would be much lighter and will reflect much better than any other material.
Great. I'm going to move questions. This is a different topic, but very relevant to both of your presentations. Tom is asking, is it emotionally difficult to design these buildings? I mean, both of you have connections, through family, etc., um, to the genocide. And do you feel a personal connection to those moments in history that has informed your designs?
Yeah. Should I go first or Paul?
Um, Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my family suffered the genocide. We lost 42 members of my family. My dad was born in a small hill town called Zeytun, which you look at it, it looks like a Matera in Italy, you know. So he was orphaned when he was 7 years old, and then a French orphanage took him, and he was raised without parents, and finally, after marriage, he migrated to Armenia, where I was born. uh, it has its scars that uh, it reflects on us. I think anytime I touch a project that it has some Armenian elements in there, I take a very deep responsibility and do research on the subject, myself. I think storytelling in any of those projects, like even if it's Western Prelacy, I wanted to say that even if you break us, you get those one dome, one half arch, one fallen cross stone, we can assemble it and still become a beautiful building. That's what I was trying to reflect on that project. And obviously, the museum is slightly different than that. It's more reflects the unity. Those fragments, the stainless steel divides into many fragments with a black metal in the between. And those fragments are our communities around the world. And the idea is when you bring those everybody together, you know, regardless of where they live and what they do. If the purpose is uh, if the purpose is kind or serving to humanity, that will form a rock that is basically will form as a one monumental building. So that's the thought behind it on that one. Yeah, it does have some emotional connections with my design at least. Yeah, I'll let Paul explain
Great.
also.
Yeah, so it's a once in a lifetime opportunity when someone asks you to convey essentially a century of generational trauma into form. So that was a daunting, really daunting task. How do I speak for the countless families who have been devastated, who've lost their history, lost their legacies because of that rift, that trauma that took place. So it was incredibly emotional, very daunting. But what is positive about it, and I think maybe R made the point, is there is trauma, there's sadness, there's this heaviness to the subject matter, but there's also an exuberance, and that exuberance is represented by the fact that we're here, we're alive, we're well, we're thriving as a people group. So there, it's this kind of odd dichotomy that you're celebrating and you're remembering at the same time. But what's particularly encouraging for me about the monument we designed at Fresno State was, so I'm the campus architect at Fresno State, and I'm on campus a lot. And whenever I'm on campus, I always, whether I need to or not, I make a detour and I walk by the monument just to observe. And I remember one time walking by and I saw a family, mom, dad, and two little kids that were not Armenian, clearly not Armenian, and they were at the monument looking at each of the panels in that monument. And what it told me was this is relevant, not just to the Armenian people, but to everybody. The fact that it's teaching, that it's educating, and the fact that we as a group decided this can't just be about the Armenian experience. This has to be about this larger issue of genocide that has not gone away. We haven't learned anything. And so the fact that a university would present that very touchy subject matter and the fact that people actually engage with it is what is absolutely thrilling and rewarding to me as an architect.
Thank you, Paul.
Great.
Let me jump in very quickly, do some additional remarks here. And the
Mhm.
museum, project that from the inset, the idea was not to just to represent the Armenian culture. On the second floor, uh, two-thirds is the Armenian, history, Armenian Americans and all of that. But the one-third of it is the visiting exhibitions. And the idea behind it, to have all other cultures which are in Southern California to have their shows and their culture presented under the same roof. And
Mm.
perhaps this is done the first time as a museum that we invite Korean, Filipino, Indian, other communities that live here in Southern California to bring in their culture and let's get together and communicate and see each and our as history. And then the same time we have a demonstration kitchen which is down there. Once it's running let's just say the Indian culture, you're gonna have Indian food down at the kitchen. How to prepare. And that could be served over there, or Filipino food. So this brings everybody together. The purpose of this museum is to unite everybody. That's been a number one idea behind this project. Uh, I kind of failed to tell you that from the beginning, but that was the number one idea behind the project, and thank you for that.
Thank you. That's a wonderful way to close today's program on a positive note about bringing people together and reflecting on history and different cultures. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Aram.
Thank you,
It was
John.
a learning experience for me too. I'm very pleased to be a part of it, and I hope both of you can join us on a future program.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I wanted to just close out with everybody and just encourage you to let our speakers know how they did today by visiting californiapreservation.org/e, which stands for evaluation. And I'll share that information anonymously with our speakers so they know how they did today. But also, I wanted to encourage you to visit our annual auction this year, of course, and go to californiapreservation.org/bid to learn about some of the amazing items that all support educational programs like this, free educational programs throughout the year. And I wanted to thank our speakers for donating their time to CPF to share their experiences and their expertise, and especially Paul for being on our board of trustees and donating his enormous amount of time. But thank you as well, Aram, for your time today.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to close us out. I will be sharing the recording at the end of the day. So keep an eye out in your emails for that recording. And we hope to see you on Thursday for a completely different culture, Danish American architecture in California, in Solvang, California. So we hope to see you on Thursday at 12 noon. Thank you both and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for the good job you guys are doing. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
My pleasure.